Good afternoon, good evening, good morning from whatever time zone you're on. It is Friday afternoon where I'm at. I think this is our eighth Facebook Live video. And so, like every other Facebook Live video, anybody that comes on, if you could just say hello, I love the interaction. I love to be able to see who's on. I love the fact that some of you guys are telling me you're from South Africa or New Zealand or wherever it is that you may be. It's never a perfect time in the world for everybody to get on to a Facebook Live video, but I've been just thoroughly humbled by the amount of people that have been on the different videos that I've had, and more importantly, just sharing their thoughts, their questions, all the different things that they do. So if you are on live today, please say hello. I'd love to see who's on. What we're going to do today is, first of all, I know I'm going to get comments about it. I'm not wearing a Burbank shirt today. My wife even asked me, she goes, "You're going with the red?" I didn't even think about it. And so a little different color today, no big deal. It's all good. Um, I guess if I'm looking at my picture right now, I match the pillows behind me, so that's good. So if you're on here, please write in the comment that you're here, say hello. Love to see where everybody's from. A couple of other things as you start typing into the chat box, what I'd like to do if you could is please do me a favor on and I'm trying to get all the technology figured out here on my Facebook page. If you could like that, I would greatly appreciate it. I think it's interesting that we have to get people to go from your Facebook wall to your page, but hey, I'll do whatever they ask me to do as far as from the technology standpoint. So please like the Facebook page. If you could also do me a favor and ch- uh, check out the YouTube. What's it called? Subscribe to the YouTube channel. All the videos are on there. So I've had some people who weren't on the Facebook Live stuff that could look at it on YouTube. So anybody that's here, please write a comment, say hello. Please friend me on the page. Go to the subscribe to the YouTube channel. One of the questions that I keep getting, and we keep talking about sales, is Pip, what are you going to be doing? I've been doing real estate sales training, motivation, whatever you want to call it, for basically the last, I'm going to say 15 years, 13 years, all around the world doing it. And so, what I'm trying to, and I love this word because what's funny is I never used this word outside of sports until the last year, and we hear it all the time now. We're going to pivot, and everybody's got to pivot. And so we got to pivot to do this, pivot to do that. And I find it interesting that we have to be in a pivot mode right now because of whatever's going on in the world. Well, if you're a basketball fan, a basketball player in any way, you learned how to pivot when you were pretty little with the basketball in your hands. So pivoting is obviously a very important part of basketball and other sports, but it's going to be obviously a big part of life, is what I keep hearing. So we got to pivot. And so in the pivot, what we're talking about today, or what I'm talking about, is I'm going to be doing some stuff with just sales training. I've had a lot of things to do with real estate over the years, but what we're going to do is I'm going to, I guess is what I should say, through my company called Burbank and some of my business partners, we're going to be transitioning it into some sales training. And what I've noticed is that every real estate investor has to learn how to sell a little bit. Every person in every walk of life has to learn how to sell. And what do you have to do? You have to ask for the sell. So I'm going to start asking, and I'm going to say it again because if you don't, you won't get anything in this world unless you start asking. Please write a comment over there in the chat box. Let me know who's on here because that provides the energy. The one thing that is almost impossible to do is to create energy without multiple people around. And so the more people you have, the more energy you create. I know in the world that we live in today, creating that energy is going to be a bit of a challenge. So please make sure that you're commenting over there, whether you like it, dislike it, whether you've learned anything in the last 2 or 3 weeks that we've been doing this. I would greatly love to see comments in the chat box. And so please do that. I would greatly appreciate it. So what we're going to talk about today is another step in the sales process, or if my Canadians are on there, process. I was talking to two Canadians last night, and they used the word process multiple times. So I had to have to laugh at that with the difference in the language. But so one of the things I got asked a lot of questions on is the customer always right? I get asked that question a lot. And my opinion is it's a sad but true answer. It depends. It literally depends on the situation. First of all, we've talked a little bit about different types of sales. We've talked a little bit about different types of sales. And so with the different types of sales, and I don't know, I got to ask, can everybody hear me okay? I've got in some headphones here. I just want to make sure that I've got the thumbs up so everybody on here can hear me, because little quiet in the chat box today. Usually I got people giving me all kinds of grief in the chat box. So maybe you just can't hear me. And if that's the case, my wife would say that's probably the best video to have, is me being completely quiet. So if that's the case, if you're all out there and you can't hear me, just give me a thumbs up. I would greatly appreciate that. So is the customer always right? I have to use the word depends. Why do I say depends? It kind of depends on the product that you're selling, the way you meet the customer, and really what they expect from you. And I think that when people say the customer is always right, I would probably agree with that 99.9% of the time. What I think is very important, I've done a lot of big ticket item sales, and I'm talking products all the way from $10,000 up to $50,000 or $60,000. And these weren't products that you could drive off a lot. So they weren't cars, they weren't houses. These were actually training packages. And when somebody's spending 30, 40, 50, $60,000 on some training, that's like a college education in one fell swoop, is what it comes down to. And so we talked a lot the other day on support. We've talked about body language, but with the customer always being right. Well, what I've found, and I've watched a lot of other people sell stuff over the years, and a lot of people, when they do these types of sales, they have to be right all the time. I learned a long time ago, you can be happy or you can be right. I'm the youngest of six kids. And so I know for a fact when I was little, I always tried to be right. I'm sure my brothers and my sisters would agree with that 1,000,000%. But what I've realized over the years is that I'd rather be happy than right. I'd rather be happy than right. I've got a wife and two kids, and they're both girls. So I'm totally surrounded by women in my house. And I have to say, I don't win a lot of arguments at my house. And so what I've tried to do is not have any arguments. And so I bring that into the sales game as well. I would stand up in front of groups of, like I said, anywhere from maybe a small group, 10 people, all the way up to thousands of people. The majority of the times when I would sell or teach or motivate, whatever you want to call it, because it was a combination of all three of those things. The majority of the time I would be in those groups is I would have, let's say, 50, 60 people in the room. That's the majority of the time. And there was always people that would be in those rooms that had to be right. And we all know people like that. If you don't know who the person is in your life that has to be right, then it's probably you. And so when you surround yourself with groups of people, you know those people that always want to one up you. If you have a story to tell, they have a better story to tell. If you have a product to sell or you know something, they know something even more about it. And so I got that a lot when I would be in groups of people. And so one of the things I would always try to do is I would let other people win, and it's okay. In the real world, you got to let people have victories, especially in a process that may take, 1, 2, 3 days. It could take weeks before somebody would purchase your product. And so in sales, you got to have people, got a lot of people have some victories. And I'm not saying you just lay down. I'm just saying if you're talking about a topic, and so we talked a lot about real estate. We talk a lot about real estate. And I always thought it was funny because I travel all over the world talking about real estate strategies. And it didn't matter where I would go. So let's say that I went up to Toronto, or I went to Mexico City, or I went to Auckland, New Zealand, and I've taught all over the world. And one of the things that would happen when I would teach these places, I'd always hear this from somebody in the room. They'd say, "Well, it's you know what it's like where you're at, but this is totally different in Toronto, or it's totally different in the UK." And what I'd have to always remember is let them win that, because I can't stand up in front of a group of people, not being from a city that they're from, and tell them that it's not different. But what I can show them is even if it's different, there are things that you can do. And so I think it's imperative what we want to do is let those people have some victories. And so whatever it is that we're doing, those victories are going to be very important for people. And it's going to allow them to feel like they're part of the process. And I don't care what it is you're selling. If somebody's selling cars, if somebody's selling jewelry, if somebody's a teacher, your students need to feel like they're winning some of those. And I don't want to call them battles, but that's really what they are, because your goal is to win the war, not to win every battle. And so sometimes you got to make people feel good. And I think that's imperative as we go through this, is to understand, is the customer always right? I would say most of the time. Now, can the customer be wrong? If the customer is in front of a group of people and maybe you're doing a group presentation in front of 40, 50, 60 people, and the group presentation came to hear you or the product that you were representing and selling, that's what they were there to do. And you have somebody over there that's trying to have their own agenda, whatever it is. If nobody came to hear somebody else that has a different agenda. And so in that instance, I think it's okay to say that the customer wouldn't be right. But after years and years of teaching, and the guys and ladies that I've worked with over the years, we would have groups of people in our conference rooms, our ballrooms, and if there was negative people, there was always this mentality of maybe we need to, ask that person to leave and not be a part of that. And my opinion always was, don't ask them to leave. They're a customer. Is the customer always right? To a certain extent, we said yes. But in that situation, what we want to do is, I think, the biggest challenge you're ever going to have, the biggest victory you're ever going to have, is to take somebody who is not sold on your product and turn them into somebody who's a raving fan. And I can give you example after examples of people that I shook a hand on Friday morning thinking these guys are going to be those negative Nellies in the room. And then by Sunday afternoon, they were in a totally different place. So I think it's imperative. I think it's imperative that we start to see that you can make people raving fans of who you are, whatever you do, just by treating them with respect and letting them win. And sometimes their wins are not you may not agree with them. You may totally disagree. Every time somebody would say, well, it's different here in this city. Real estate is different in Toronto than it is in wherever you're from. And I'd have to say, you know what? It's really not. No matter where you go in the world, people either own houses or pay rent. They do one of those two things, unless they're living someplace free because somebody else is paying the rent or the mortgage. So is there really any difference? Maybe the size of the houses are different. Maybe the type of house is different. But at the end of it, we all live in some type of living quarters, an apartment, a house, and whatever it may be. So we have to pay rent, we have to pay a mortgage, or maybe you own it free and clear. You pay cash for it. It doesn't matter. But really, when it comes down to it, when somebody says real estate's a lot different in where we're at, technically, no, it's not. Everybody needs a place to rest their heads. And so I always looked at it, okay, you can say that it's different, but when we really start to look at it, it's not that different. It's not really different whatsoever. It's actually the same. But let them have that victory. Find a different battle to fight. I'll never forget, and I guarantee he's probably not on this call. When we had the grocery stores years ago, in Nebraska City and in Bellevue, and some of you guys on here will remember that. There was a guy worked for Little Debbie. Little Debbie cakes. If you're not from the U.S., you may not know what they are. The inside, I love Little Debbie cakes, and so the point being, his name was Brian, and Brian was probably, I'm going to say, 10, 12 years older than me at the time, and Brian had kids, and I was just my wife and I were just starting to have kids, so Riley would have been probably a baby at that point. And I'll never forget Brian giving me some advice. And he said, when your kids get older, fight the right battles. And I said, what do you mean? Well, if anybody knows me, I'm kind of a neat freak. I like things in a very orderly fashion. I like things to be clean. I like all that stuff. And even with our grocery stores, I always wanted to make sure that they were very clean. I wanted to make sure that there was, no dirt here, and things were straightened up. And if anybody ever worked in a store with me, having the store all faced up and stocked up, those were my goals to have. And so I think Brian, the guy from Little Debbie, saw how much of a neat freak I was. And he said, Pip, I can give you any parenting advice. When your kids get to be in junior high and high school, he said, fight the battles that you want to fight. Some of the little stuff, let it go. And I wasn't sure what he meant. So I asked him, he said, I know how neat you like things. I know how much of an order freak you kind of are. But he said, if the room's a little messy, as long as it's not damaging the products and the items that they have in there, they're not ripping their clothes and things like that. Those are battles you probably don't want to fight because there's going to be a lot bigger battles that you want to fight. So I truly believe that with sales, you're not going to win them all. And I really dislike the mentality of you're either selling or you're going to get sold. Man, and if you don't know what that means, I think it's a very brash way to say things. So if I'm trying to sell you a product, whatever that product is, and you tell me you don't need it, you don't have time to do it, it's the price is wrong, whatever it is, and you tell me no, there are a lot of salespeople out there will say that I got sold. The person that I was selling to sold me their excuses better than I sold them the benefits and the features of the product. I disagree with that. There are times people just can't buy something that you have. They want to. I think I that happened to me more than anybody that anything that I can ever remember is how many times I stood in front of groups of people and the least priced product that we had was just too expensive. I didn't set the prices on any of the products, but the least priced product was too expensive for some people. And if that's the case, if you go to a dealership for cars and all they sell are Mercedes, but you're on a Chevy budget, you may want the Mercedes, but you can't afford it. And so sometimes your price is going to determine what somebody can or cannot afford. Can somebody still get a lot of value with the interaction that you have, even if they can't afford your product? I agree 1,000,000%. So I really think what we have to understand is as we do this, there's constantly going to be that give and take. And I truly never believe that you're getting sold if you don't sell but somebody something. They're selling you better than you're selling them. I disagree with that. I was talking to a young kid in Toronto area this week or last week, pardon me, and we were talking about doing some real estate training. And his comment was, I totally believe that there's value here. I totally believe this, totally believe that, but it's just not the right time for me. Now, somebody might have said, well, outsold me on the fact that he didn't have time right now. Now, I could go over all kinds of objections, and I could say to the kid, I could say, well, chances are if you don't do it now, you're never going to do it. Now is as good a time as any. If you want to start making money in real estate, when do you want to start? Do you want to start today or do you want to wait 6 months? Well, if somebody wants to make excuses, they can excuse themselves out of anything. And it's real easy to make excuses right now. Why is it real easy to make excuses? A lot of weird stuff going on in the world. Got a pandemic. We got a lot of job loss. We got politics coming into play. We've got social movements coming into play. And you can make money, you can make excuses, but you can't do both. I said that on a Instagram quote last night, and I was told that a long time ago. I heard that from a guy by the name of Robert Kiyosaki. Some of you guys have read his book. If you haven't read his book, read it. He's got tons of them, but the most important one is called Rich Dad Poor Dad. It totally changed my philosophy in life. Everything I ever did before Rich Dad, I can find a specific thought process in my life before I read that book and after I read that book. After I read that book, I looked at the world in a different way. That's how much of a profound effect Rich Dad Poor Dad had on me. Did I ever think when I read that book in 2002 that a few years later I would be in a training with Robert Kiyosaki? I had the opportunity in 2007 to get trained by Robert Kiyosaki to go out all across the world and teach his philosophy. And I was able to do that. And so that was what was cool for me. But the mentality of I can't afford it, it's not the right time, all those things. I can sit here and give you an objection killer to all of them. But really, when it comes down to it, what do they say? When the student is ready, the teacher will appear. If you're not ready here, if you're not ready here, there's no way that I can change that in your mind. The point being is, I want to always be there and available to people. There are many people that I've been communicating with over the last 2 or 3 months that I haven't talked to in a long time. There was a gentleman from Toronto. His name is Guy. Anyway, the point being, I met Guy back in 2009, and Guy was helping me. He was doing a testimonial for me for some stuff that I'm going to be doing up here in the very near future. And Guy made the comment to me on an email to me. He said, "Pip, I could write more stuff, but they might think I'm related to you." And so when you can have an effect on people that long ago, that means you did something right. And so that's why I never think the sales process is you buy today or you don't buy today. The sales process is if have I made an impact on you? So if you don't buy today, do you want to come back and buy tomorrow, the next day, the next day? And so what we have to understand is And some of the guys talk to me that I work with. They're like, you want to make raving fans out of people. You want to make raving fans, and those raving fans are going to be the ones that continue to buy from you and buy from you and buy from you. I get the opportunity, and I don't know, I'm sure he may watch this video down the road, and there may be some people that already are working with Tim. I have the opportunity. I'm gonna have a call with Tim here as soon as I get off with on the Facebook Live. I have a call with a guy by the name of Tim Sy, one of my favorite people in the world. He knows that. Tim is got his own company, doing a lot of training stuff. I get the opportunity to talk to his group of people tomorrow night. Uh, I think generally it would be a keynote speech in a hotel somewhere, but with all the stuff that's going on with the pandemic, I'm going to be doing it just like this in this arena. So I don't have to get on an airplane, don't have to fly anywhere to do that, but I get the opportunity to speak with a bunch of people. Now, why is that? I met Tim in 2010, and I've continued to keep in touch with Tim. He's kept in touch with me because the way I look at it, we're both customers of for life with each other. And whatever that is we can do to help and support each other, that's what we're going to do. So you want to make raving fans out of your customers. How do you do that? Everything we've been talking about for the last 7 or 8 Facebook Lives. It comes down to, treating them with a smile, be respectful, follow up, all those things we do. Let them have some victories, because if you can do that, then obviously things are going to be much different in that relationship. And this is part of, I think, growing up, but it's more about a part of not just growing up, because we all grow older, but do we get better? Do we get smarter? There's a big difference between getting older and getting smarter. And I said this earlier in the talk today, is, I'd rather be happy than right. And there are times when I will shake somebody's hand and they'll make a statement, and I know for a fact, especially if it's a real estate related thing, that they are incredibly wrong. I already know that. But is it my job to tell them how wrong they are? That's why this isn't a political forum. That's why this isn't about anything other than being positive. Because really, just because that person thinks they're right, even though I know, I mean, and a lot of it will come down to a legality. Like, well, you might be able to do that in Kansas City or Nebraska or wherever you're from, but Pip, you can't do that in this city or that city. Well, yeah, you can. I know that for a fact because I see hundreds of other people doing the exact same thing. And so when somebody tells you that, I'm not going to argue with them. That's not the point. I may show them through some examples or have them talk to somebody else who's doing the exact same thing that it can be done. But I'm sure it's not going to say, you're stupid and you're wrong, because that's not the way to win that war or to win that battle. The way to win that is to let them know you care about the answer that they've given you, but maybe there is a different way to look at it. So I think it's very important to let the customers win. I also think it's very important to understand that you're not going to push that stuff at them if they don't want it. They've got to want it. They've got to be accepting of it. If I have everybody on this call today, we've been on here for 23 minutes, and nobody wants to comment on something, then that's completely fine. I can't twist your arm to make you do that. And so what I think is cool, though, is if you sit out there and you take care of people the way they want to be treated. And I love this. I was talking to one of my business partners, Dan, this week, and I literally, Lou Holtz, and my brother was on one of the last times, and asked me to recite something from Lou Holtz. I've memorized so many things from Lou Holtz because he's one of my idols. There's no doubt about it. And Lou Holtz has basically three rules that he teaches and talks about. Do what's right, do your best, and treat other people the way you want to be treated. If you do those kinds of things, because if I'm your customer and I tell you, no, I'm not interested right now, I respect that you respect that, and you'll not keep pushing me. And so I think that's an important thing. It's about letting each other be respectful and have some wins. So, guys, please do me a favor. If you like this video, share it. Please make sure you make comments on there. I love to see the comments where people are from, all that different stuff. What I also want to do as we go through here, guys, is please like the Facebook page for me, if you will. I greatly appreciate that. And then subscribe to the YouTube channel, and also follow me on Instagram. I think I'm starting to figure that all out. Somebody made a comment that I sent them an email, and at the bottom of my email now, there's all this professional stuff like a Facebook link, an Instagram link, and all that kind of stuff. Well, that's on there because my wife did all that. I don't know how to do any of that. I'm lucky to have a first and last name at the end of an email. Now I've got this whole bar of stuff at the bottom. So that's pretty cool. So Guys, please do me a favor, share the video, make comments, whatever you need to do. It is what, Friday afternoon where I'm at right now. So we'll do the next Facebook Live on Monday. Please do me a favor, start understanding that I'm going to be sending some emails out to some people, kind of let you know what I'm doing. I'm tentatively marking out the dates of the 23rd, 24th, and 25th of April, which will be, it's going to be I mean, obviously, we got a lot of planning to do before that, but that's the goal right now. 23rd, 24th, 25th of did I say April? I should have said October. I think I did say April. 23rd, 24th, 25th of October. So about 4 weeks from now, we're going to be looking at doing a 3-day training, a whole 3-day basic training, as we like to call it in what I do, in sales and all the stuff to do with sales and how it relates back to your business. We'll be talking about getting into masterminds and mentoring and all kinds of stuff. So 23rd, 24th, 25th of October. I think I said April a little while ago, but it's October 23rd, 24th, 25th. Share the video if you can. Please make sure you friend me on or follow me on Instagram and like the Facebook page, guys. As I say every time I get done with one of these different Facebook lives, please, keep everything positive. Go out, tell somebody you know, tell somebody you don't know that you're going to be all right, because when it's all said and done, you're going to be all right. Have a great day, guys. We will talk to you soon.